together for the Economic Development and Community Engagement Committee meeting. I have emailed everybody on the committee a copy of the agenda, like in the last 5 minutes, because I forgot to print a piece of paper. But it's just our committee goals, and then as we have updates, we'll go through those today, and then I'll ask some questions like where we might want to develop a point of view on some things, or maybe just start to plan out what a process or a next step could be. So I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts. As a review for those who are listening, as a committee, I believe it was our February meeting, we thought through initially goals, and then in March kind of settled on some, and we can still add to. We have some more capacity, but a welcome to Norwood. We're actually creating a welcome experience, and we'll talk about that. We've got a draft to look at some things today. Small business in Norwood. We've got some development guides we can look at, as well as some next steps to think about how do we provide information to residents and promote resources for residents who are entrepreneurs or might want to go that direction. Neighborhood associations, that was the language used. I think really this might be as broad as just how do we get folks to talk to each other. I think one thing we've noted on council floors and our committee before is that coordination of communication is a need. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that. And community engagement overall, you've got a handout on your desk. I want to thank Pam for helping with this. She's actually gone out and looked at what are the ways residents are already engaged online anyway through Facebook. And so we can look at that as maybe a resource for thinking through options we can do parallel or in concert. And then lastly, but our first guest will be Angela Panatela, giving us an update on the quality of life planning process here in Norwood. Angela's handed out a flyer, and I'm sure she'll tell us more about that. So thank you for being here.
You're very welcome.
I think everybody has heard at least once from you regarding this. I'm looking around. I don't think anybody's hearing about the project for the first time. So I think as much recap as you want and an update is what we'd like.
I'm happy to provide a quick refresher because it's been a little while. This is a project. Basically, there are different ways of engaging with community members, right? Formally and informally, and different products and outputs that might happen through processes of community engagement. This is one, and it is a resident-led model. It is a model that was introduced to us by the Local Initiative Support Corporation, which has done similar quality of life planning processes, or they have helped facilitate, they have provided technical support, technical assistance to neighborhoods throughout Cincinnati. LISC is a national organization, but they have a Cincinnati branch, and they have coordinated efforts to help communities discover what it is that community members are most passionate about and most want to work on together. So a number of formal and informal organizations came together to work on this. Woven Oak is one. We've been acting as lead agency because we are a nonprofit and we can receive funding for it. The Norwood Community Coalition, which meets the second Wednesday of the month at 10 a.m. It's a service agencies group. Norwood First and the Norwood Neighborhood Services group all came together, and folks from those organizations joined a steering committee. So there's a 10 or 11 person steering committee that has been going out and interviewing formal and informal community leaders, and we have gathered, I believe, 60 interviews so far, with everyone having named up to 160 names of people to talk to. And the interview process is asking what are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats you identify in Norwood. I have collected out of that 1,330 comments, which we've been adding to a spreadsheet. clustering, and Hillary Kopsikanen has been gracious enough to create some narratives around that, which we will be sharing at the June 23rd event. So it is, what she compiled is, it's a compilation of resident input, just placed in a narrative form. It's taking the comments and seeing where the common threads are, where the common themes, distilling those down and presenting them in narrative form. We're also going to present it in priority area form so that folks will see, okay, we've noted that there's been a lot of comments about this or that. So from the report back, which will be the first part of the June 23rd gathering, we will go into a visioning session, which is just taking stock and saying, okay, given where we are right now, where would we like to see Norwood be in 5-10 years' time? That's really these are all preliminary steps towards forming a quality of life plan, and there will be an opportunity for anyone who is feeling engaged in that to join a subcommittee that would work towards particular goals under each heading. So say one goal is park improvement. So to work on a particular, wording of a plan out of that would be to say, by the year 2020, we'd like to see new playground equipment in this number of parks, for instance. And you can, if you look up Madisonville quality of life, Google that, you will find a document where Madisonville went through this process about 5 years ago, and an organization called MKirk has been updating that and sending out updates to community residents to say this is what we've done and we as Madisonville have done. So, there is a lead agency again on that project, but it is really the work of the community as a whole, whether that's government folks, whether it is neighborhood associations, whether it is churches. Everyone has stepped forward and taken some ownership of this process, and they can show by that document, look, this is what has happened since all of us came together and said this is what we want to see happen in a plan.
Any questions?
This is open to the public.
This is open to the public, yep. Saturday, June 23rd, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. At Norwood High School. We will break out into classrooms for some conversation. We'll also utilize the cafeteria for lunch. Then we'll put donuts or bagels or something out at the beginning of the day so that folks have something to start with. I should mention, too, that it's going to be a process then, committee meeting on the regular after that, up to a rollout of the whole plan once a plan is solidified. And I don't know at this point how long that will take. It could be another matter of months.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to thank you, Angela, for being here. And, I think many residents will talk about, we'll hear people that, will offer comments about, things they want to see improved in the city, or, they want to, there's things that they want to see changed. And, this June 23rd is going to be an excellent opportunity for that. And so, I'm excited and hope that you can, just share it to the world and just really make sure that everybody knows about it, because I think this is going to be great. I think that the feedback that residents give is going to be fantastic, and I just want to thank you and the rest of the team for all the work that you are doing on this. And as a council member, this quality of life plan, especially once it's finished, is going to be so helpful to help kind of guide us. So I'm excited about that and look forward to seeing it.
Thank you. It's certainly what I hope for. That I really admire the work that everyone does on council, because you have stepped up and said, I want to be for the city, and I want to take my talents and utilize it for the betterment of the city. And this is a way to I think that in the best cases, what happens with this is residents are activated and realize that there are things that they can do. It's not just something that somebody else can do. Like, I am a resident here and I want to dream up the kind of Norwood that I want to live in, and I'm going to get together with the people that I know to do that in community. So, yeah, we definitely feel like this is something that we want to offer as a partnership to council and to anyone who is interested in seeing a improved quality of life in Norwood.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, just feel free if you need any help with any plans or any graphics or anything like that for the parks or for anything
Great,
like that, just let me know.
great, will do, thank you.
Maps,
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, it'd be very helpful.
I want to say I'm very excited that this is coming together. I just wanted to make sure folks don't need to RSVP. They can just come.
They can just come. It is helpful to RSVP, so there is a Facebook event. I have it on Woven Oaks Facebook page, which you can just go to from like facebook.com/wovenoak. I will make sure that it is readily available. I've been asking steering committee members to distribute this flyer as well to the people that they've talked to, but I will make sure that we get it out, and I can get an electronic copy to anyone who wants it as well.
Thank you for coming and sharing. I think I also want to just underscore this to be a helpful tool. I've seen how it's worked in Madisonville and other communities, and I'm really excited that residents' voices are coming together to say this is what we want to see. It gives us so much more leverage when we introduce new ideas, and so I just want to underscore for us in the room and those who are watching, if you can come be part of this, come be part of this. It's going to be a really pivotal time for us as residents to discuss what we hope for, and it comes at a really unique time in our history. And so I just want to encourage folks, if you have questions, maybe post a question as you're looking at the event on Facebook, maybe reach out to us, reach out to Angela, but don't let a question keep you from coming if you can. What should folks do if they can't come, though? If maybe they're thinking, all right, maybe I had an interview or heard about them, and maybe something does take off with, you know, some new priority. You've mentioned committees.
Yes.
You're always welcome, of course, to come back and give other updates, but
Yeah,
is there
I'll certainly
something
do that.
folks should pay attention to now?
So I will endeavor to keep, again, Woven Oaks Facebook page updated, and I will shoot out updates to Norwood Strong as well, and any other outlets that folks recommend or would be willing to share to as we create the committee schedule, because I think the committee should be open as well to anyone who comes. I'm sure they'll be populated by the folks who come to the June 23rd first, but it can be a rolling membership. And then, yeah, part of the design that this is a snowball effect of like we're talking to people one-on-one, and we're inviting the people we've talked to invite the people in their circles to this quality of life report back and visioning session. Then there's the committee meetings that can attract people who are interested in particular issue areas, and then all of that will all culminate in a big, hopefully, rollout of the plan itself, where all residents can sign on. Maybe literally we can show what the plan looks like and have everyone's signature on it. That would be kind of fun.
Nice. Anything else? Yeah.
Thank you. And so one of the questions I think I've heard too, so what if somebody wants to be interviewed, they really want to give feedback, and
yeah.
they haven't been asked just because maybe they're...
Thank you for asking that. So my email address is Angela, Angela, at wovenoak.org, wovenoak.org. It is very probable that the name is already on the list and we just have not done it yet, but because someone has done that to me, and said, about that quality of life thing. I thought I'd be interviewed by now. Why haven't I been interviewed tonight? I set up an interview that for the next week, knowing that somebody was that engaged. We certainly don't want to turn anybody away from that.
Great.
Okay, I think that's it. Thank you. You're welcome to stay if you'd like. Sure. Oh, I do have one more question. Sorry, I just looked back at the agenda. There was a question here. So, I know you've asked for council to be involved if we're asked to be interviewed, if others want to be interviewed. I wanted to ask you, is it important for the administration to come to this?
Oh, yes.
Like, do we need to... Are you reaching out to them to come be a part? Is it meaningful for us to think about reaching out to them and saying, hey, here's this thing, would you think about coming?
Yes and yes.
Okay. So are you reaching out to each department head?
My own knowledge of how the city works is minimal, so
Okay.
Any guidance on that would be helpful.
Yeah.
I'll make sure I'll have a conversation with the mayor about this and try to encourage him to attend. And I personally think it's gonna be eye-opening for him. I personally will not be there because I have a pre-scheduled trip with my wife. However, I'm jealous of the people that will be there because I think it's going to be extremely eye-opening. And I'm hopeful that potentially we can attend. So.
I'm also hoping that some amount of video might be able to be done, so we'll see what we can do with that.
Okay. Alrighty. Well, I think that does wrap up that area. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I want to go next to talking about this welcome experience. And Eric, I don't think you were here when we first talked about it, but I was referencing our time at the markets over the summer. I almost, in my head, I think I had emailed or texted you to say, can you bring those boards? I don't even know if they still exist, but
I think I still have them.
maybe we should remake them. So over the summer, Eric and I were out at the farmer's market. He put together just these two little visuals, and it snowballed a lot of conversation with residents, even visitors to the city. And we just started to kick around this idea, like, welcome to Norwood, like Welcome 101, to help people understand our infrastructure as a local municipality. And last month or so at Coffee with Council, a couple of residents were talking with me about the idea, and they were like, well, you know, Wyoming does something like that. And so we reached out to Wyoming. A local realtor who's really focused on Norwood, Jennifer McGillis, reached out, went and got us a sample.
Wow.
So when you move into the city of Wyoming, even as a tenant, if you have a water bill in your name, their staff will actually send you this. I know, eyes are so wide right now, like, what? It's a really cool idea. It says, just ask wyomingohio.gov. I'm going to pass this around so you can look at it, but just in brief, there's everything from, like, Wyoming newcomers, make friends, have fun flyer, to like a whole folder where you've got like welcome home, there's a community map, visitor's guide, the historic district, it's got the annual report type stuff. I'm not suggesting we do all of that, but I do think we should think about where to start. They've got things in here sponsored by businesses in the community, and of course this handy reusable bag. This is old, but this is a video about the city. So maybe just take a piece of something that you find appealing and just kind of pass here. You guys go that way, I'll rough this over here. We can start with more of the fun stuff. So I just wanted to think about, like, okay, where do we want to start? I feel like that's beyond the hill, and I don't think we're going there just yet. Maybe somebody at the visioning meeting will want to lift that up. But I was really inspired, and so I'll share while you all are looking. Just one idea that came to mind was just processing. Like, how do we do this? I recall Councilmember Hanrahan talked about reaching out at a ward level. So I'm going to follow up with her and think about how do we scale that? Can we scale that? What's costs look like? If it's just like a newsletter paper that's going out, maybe directing you to the website versus, you know, do we have opportunity maybe to work with our historical society and put together like a brief from then to now welcome. And that's really part of what inspired some of this thinking even about just getting a better look at where are folks going once they're in the neighborhoods, in the communities of Norwood for information. So that's where this list idea came from. So I definitely think we could begin brainstorming tonight. What's the one thing or two things or three things we really feel like, yeah, when you come to Norwood, we want you to know this or have this. And begin thinking about, is that a product in hand or is that something online?
I like that.
I think you always make a bigger impact if you give something physical to them. Even if you have something online, you're going to still have to have a way of delivering that online address to new residents anyway. So there's going to have to be something physical. So I think that would be we need to consider that. There's something cool in there. One of the little flyers was for, they do multiple times a year a new residents party.
Who does?
Wyoming.
Oh, multiple times a year, Wyoming does a new resident party.
New residents party. And like, that's an interesting idea just to have it set, 2 or 3 times a year. And encourage new folks to come out. And you could give stuff away at that, but that's also a time for just to hear about the city from other people. I think that would be an interesting thing to pursue.
Do you recall, is that sponsored by the city or is it by civic groups, businesses?
I didn't read the whole brochure. I was just...
Oh, you're saying you just noted it. I thought you were like speaking from experience. That's why I was asking you more. Okay, so that's something we can follow up with. You like the idea of a resident welcome like party?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah?
I love this idea. Yeah, this is great. This goes back to Mr. Williams said years ago they used to give gift cards, and remember that conversation. I think that's a great idea. I mean,
is there a particular piece of welcome that you're like, ooh, can we start there? How about we make sure everybody...
I like the history. I just read real briefly the history of the trees in Wyoming. One tree is 500 years old. I mean, I think that's a fantastic thing right there.
There's a thing about, there's specific trees that are hundreds of years old that they included like a little walking guide.
History of trees and walking guide.
Absolutely.
I mean,
love that.
you could almost do like 3 things I'm thinking of, like the new residents meet and greet or whatever, do a history of Norwood so people get an appreciation of the place where they've moved to, and do something. We are the Economic Development Committee. Let's highlight our local businesses. You don't have to go to Oakley or to Hyde Park or for this, that, or the other thing, that we've got so much here to offer already. So whether it's a map with businesses on it or just a list of participating businesses, it could be, like you said, they used to give out gift cards or something. Maybe businesses would want to give a deal to new residents or something. You know what I'm saying? Just something to introduce the businesses in the community to new residents as well.
So that might be an opportunity to partner with the chamber.
Sure.
Yeah, and one thing to note here is that not all of these items are produced by the same people. So like the map was produced by a committee of people that went and got sponsorships from businesses, and so in here there are, each of the sponsors have their specific location called out, for
on the
Wyoming.
map.
So I think that could be definitely a model for how the map gets funded. And then the welcome home thing, it basically has like just a guide to everything about Wyoming. It has like, so we talk about the fire and EMS department. It talks about that. It talks about the water department, the recreation, community events, all the different boards and commissions in the city government. So very fascinating. And this is just on regular paper. So like basically this could be created and then updated as things change, because things always do change. So very impressive. So the two that I would say are like the biggest priority would be that welcome home, just to full thing of information and the community map and visitors guide. So I love both those.
Okay. Angela, you have any input? Greg?
No, nothing so far.
Okay.
Seems very neat, though.
All right, so we've got a lot of interest around the new resident party, possibly multiple times a year. We really like the history of trees and like the walking guide, maybe coupled with the highlight of local businesses, whether that be a map or an event. And then, James, you said that map calls out where the sponsors are on there, and then making sure we highlight the history, like in their welcome home piece. Okay.
Yeah, and even getting like sponsors, it looks like this person, this photography business here, their postcard is in that, and so getting them to sponsor not just like, you know, the cost of printing their postcard, but then to help subsidize the cost of the packet as well. I think that's a good opportunity. So this is Wendy McGee photography. I can totally see a Tanya Cook photography, you know, in here. So
Nice.
I think it's just fantastic. So I appreciate you all. Was it Jennifer that was able to get that for us? Or?
Yes.
Yeah, I appreciate her, and thanks for asking about that. I think that's just great.
And I think we should check with the chamber to see if they have a map that comes with there and be helpful.
Okay. Are you a member of the chamber?
No, I am not.
Change this to a member. Okay, I've got notes there. Somebody got something else?
Now I was just going to ask, are you a member of the chamber?
Currently, I am not. I'm saving my dollars so that I can become a member because I'd like to be.
Excellent.
I started years ago that could be, I have something I started years ago that could be a start to what we're talking about.
I think we're sitting next to our Gym of the Highlands right here.
It even says welcome home. It's the exact
Yes.
phrasing my own
Beautiful.
uses. So,
Okay.
Yeah, I'd love to see
I mean,
that.
we could elaborate on it,
We'll
but
pass
it
this
has the
around.
framework potentially.
Starting is
of
the
it.
hardest part, so that's...
Yeah, so
I can't wait to
you're
see
right. It's easier to redline and look at something and edit it than it is to start from scratch. So
Excellent. Well, if you want to take a look tonight, is that a file you can also send out?
yeah, I should be able to. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like a EPS or something.
like a PDF. I
Okay.
should be able to send it out. And then with Eric's experience with Photoshop, or it's in InDesign too, so I think I can get you the file. We
can both work on it.
cater it
That's great.
to that.
What am I looking at here?
That was like a ribbon cutting for,
Eric,
might be Kroger.
Do you think
It looks like with a break.
within the
That's
next
wonderful.
month
Nice work.
it seems feasible to provide feedback?
Oh, sure.
Not just you, but I mean like in terms of keeping the idea moving. I want to try and put it on a cadence so that
You're
we've
right.
got something. Okay.
Do a month.
I'll make sure I mark that down.
Yeah,
for
just turned
next month.
47, so just close to 50.
The other part, if we were going to do a walking tour, I think I've always thought architecture. We have more architecture buildings that are off Montgomery Road, churches and things like that I think get forgotten.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
It's got beautiful.
Angela, you know already. When I first moved here, I told Angela, I was like, I need a walking tour of Norwood. And I haven't settled on one. There's one red footprint in front of my house, and I don't know where the next one is. So I would be happy, very, very happy to take a look at, test out your architectural walking tour.
Yeah, and I have some old pictures that I've been collecting over the years that it might be neat to see an old picture of a building and then, you know, see what it looks like now. So if I can track down some of those,
Okay.
I have some.
I've uncovered from walls, one time in particular, I found a note when I was turned walls down in a home in Norwood. I found a note from the Bank of Norwood.
Wow.
I don't know,
It's probably part of U.S. Bank now.
Mr. Thornberry has that, and I just thought it was really interesting. So
That's cool.
part of
That's a
history.
neat find.
Yeah,
Anyway,
we had some neat old bank buildings.
All right. So I appreciate you all's input on that I'm very excited to see it moving forward. I'm hopeful to get some more resident input this weekend on what this looks like and maybe some next steps. For folks who are watching, if you have ideas or if you know of ways this has been approached in the past, something we can build on, or other folks who might like to be a part of the process, please feel free to reach out. You can find my email, lstevenson@norwood-ohio.com, and send some ideas. So let's move on. We've already touched on 2 of our 3 goals. Let's get into small business in Norwood next. Greg had a couple other skeletons that he shared with us, some development guides and other resources. This was sent a while ago. I'm not sure if everyone's had a chance to look at it, but Greg, could you maybe walk us through how that came about and then what might be some opportunities with it?
So a number of years ago, we had held sort of almost a design charrette with master's students from Xavier, and kind of came up with this framework. It was like a day-long event, just free brainstorming in the beginning, and then they kind of adjourned for a little bit and then came back with different ideas on small business, really focusing along Montgomery Road was the big focus, coming from the south up to maybe about the library, maybe a little bit past, something like that, and just different ideas of what could we do to sort of galvanize those areas and what sort of cluster type developments could work into there, and then a framework of how, what we call like an economic resource process, what way we could help with that. So we had the framework and all of that, and then it just kind of, like some things seem to die its way out. So I think it just needs a stronger committee with it. I mean, I think we sort of got stuck, and I think we had a meeting with it of an effective implementation, and how do you attract small business? So, I mean, I think that would be the next step for the different portions of that. So we had a bunch of different ideas of what to do, but then how to actually attract those small businesses, sort of the big silver bullet that's difficult to grasp.
I spent quite a bit of time reading this, and like it's all really good thinking, I think, and I was thinking the same thing. It's like, okay, great, now how do we make it happen?
Yes.
I was curious because you've been around a while, and I kind of look at what's happening in Pleasant Ridge right now as something that this really sparked as I was reading through some of these things, especially the different areas of proposed restaurant or retailer kind of things like that, and what's going on in Pleasant Ridge. And I looked into it, and they, like 6 years ago, I think, got named, certified, is it certified? Yeah, Community Entertainment District. They got named that not only by Cincinnati, Hamilton County, but also by the state. And that gave them the freedom to, the one thing that pops into my mind of all the things I read was to do liquor licenses in the area without having to use existing licenses and stuff. Anyway, it was 6 years ago, but it got the ball rolling on what we're seeing in Pleasant Ridge now, and I wondered if maybe one of these areas in this resource process had the potential for us to apply to have an entertainment district here within Norwood, and you have to put together kind of it's a plan very much like this, how you see that district growing and expanding and what kind of impact you see it having.
Thank you.
But I think once you can get the state behind it and recognizing it as such, it might open up the possibilities of I think especially restaurant kind of businesses maybe want to come in, because they're not going to have to battle for existing licenses from places that frankly we don't want to lose the places that we've already got here in town. We want more places and more development, and so rather than trying to cannibalize what we've got, I think this kind of thing might give us the opportunity to actually build on what we've got.
Good.
Just a quick note, just to come to mind about liquor license, and Years ago, I don't remember the exact number, but as far as liquor license bars, I think 16 or 20 something, like we had all up and down. When we had GM here, and we had, the Renaissance was booming here, and we had, I know 16 or more of places with liquor license that served alcohol, and as we changed as a community, as GM closed, and those started fading away, and now I don't know how many, but I know that it's not as many as we did. Montgomery Road was lined from Pond Hill to Pleasant Ridge. Over 20 something places where you could go and have liquor licenses to serve alcohol, but for some reason times are changing, and not so many of them.
Still around.
So maybe it's time to
Give it a push.
So anyway, that just came to mind when you were speaking of the liquor license and generating new ones as far as using old ones.
And I'm not speaking of that just solely thinking of bars either, but bringing in the kind of restaurants, and most restaurants now
They need it, yeah.
serve alcohol. I mean, there's no. You don't hardly ever see a bar open anymore or a restaurant open anymore. It's both.
Times are changing, yes.
Exactly. It's just the way things are now. So
Well, maybe we're coming back to circle, like history repeats itself.
Exactly.
So maybe that starts the whole, history repeats itself, so I've heard.
Yeah.
James, do you have any recollection in the last term you served, was there any discussion around community entertainment districts, or I know you were on economic development before?
Yeah, we did not discuss specifically creating an entertainment district. I guess the Rookwood developments have utilized Trex transfers, I guess if you will, for liquor licenses to be able to bring liquor licenses from other parts of the state in here without going against the quota. And so that was been used for quite a few of the developed restaurants at Rookwood. So I don't think that we've not gone down that potential though, and I don't think the Trex transfer thing would work as well in just the core of our city, because it's really focused on, I think the intent's like economic development projects, and so I think that the path that Eric's referring to sounds like it's going to be a better path if we go down that path.
It's potential, and part of it, like there's a certain number of acreage you have to dedicate to it. With there's a lot that goes into it. There's Ohio Revised Code, of course. So there's pages of it. But it's. I think if we just thought about Montgomery Road, we've got a really good corridor there where we might be able to find the length of acreage that we would need to be able to put something like that together.
Yeah. And I think in this whole, while we're looking at the liquor licensing, I think we really need to assess what's currently going on with parking requirements for new businesses.
Parking requirements
for new businesses, especially in existing buildings. And in the past, and I know, Greg, you might actually be pretty familiar with this. Mm-hmm. In the past, there used to be, we would demolish buildings in the city in order so that people can fulfill some kind of a parking requirement. And so we lost, in my opinion, we lost something really great with the Pike back in the 50s. Part of losing some of the gyms that were a part of that was for parking. And so I would encourage us to see what we can do. And I just need to have a conversation with the building department, and I can report back at our next meeting. But I think we should look at that and see if there potentially needs to be even more changes to that, and to just what the minimum requirements are.
Sorry, municipal requirements?
Yeah, so in our zoning code, so many municipalities have these, but...
Again, not to echo back on Pleasant Ridge, but I did a lot of reading about it.
Yeah.
They don't have a lot of parking there. But their entire community and business community recognized that having that area grow economically was good. And so the different businesses there that own parking lots opened them up. Nobody says you can only park in this bank lot if you're using this bank. Every parking lot up there, or many of the parking lots up there, are just open to the community, even if they are business-owned lots. So there are ways around those kinds of things. It just requires some, I think, community cooperation. And I think if we had a good plan, we might be able to get that.
Great.
I have two things with that, if that's okay. So we did eliminate the parking requirements for most commercial uses along, just in general. So really, it's residential units, like a car per there. So we've eliminated almost most because of that. What was happening too is a lot of buildings were dormant because you just have no parking associated with it. So it's kind of a penalty for literally being landlocked on Montgomery Road. So we can review those and see if there's any that we're missing. What we're finding with it is that even if we eliminate the requirements, businesses have a model in their head of how much they need. So I think we need to figure out strategies. There's two things that couple with it. I think because we have lost a lot of our infrastructure, we do need some infill projects, I think, to fill the gaps along Montgomery Road. So as we get some of these going in there, that'll highlight the leftover sort of infrastructure that we have, which unfortunately some is okay, but we've lost a lot of if you look back in history, some of the ones that were really strategic are gone. So we almost need to not recreate those, but get some infill on doing that and get the massing back to get that walkable feeling through there. So with that, at the same time, we need to figure out places to park and better utilize, maybe through that map. I mean, we have the parking behind City Hall, but it's just not a vibrant sort of walking area. It is, but mostly for business. We need to, I think, look and still find pockets of parking, but that's behind Montgomery Road, but that doesn't affect the neighborhoods. So it's a catch-22, because then Montgomery Road gets great, or starts to make its thing, which is what we all want. But because of the lack of parking, it'll start to push parking down into the streets. So then we'll have to figure out certain strategies of parking permits and all of that on the streets.
We've got, Central Park's got a big garage. There might be ways to get used to that at all hours. I'm not saying free use, but pay to park. You pay to park everywhere you go.
Yeah, and actually the Central Park garage is owned by the city of Norwood, and it is free and open to the public for, I don't know, there probably are some limits, but for any business that's near that, like the election office or anything else, can send people to use it because it's an open public parking garage. So,
Well, that's it.
but I think that's relatively new. We did that last council, but it's one of the benefits of some economic development strategies that we utilize. So which is really exciting. Yeah, and hopefully we can do that more.
No, that's great. Yeah, so, there's ways to get around some of this stuff, I think.
And I think if anyone knows on TV here or in the public, a small-scale developer who wants to do an infill project, those are the things that we need to encourage. And I think we're getting there with it, even though we're seeing some infill there. So I think we can plug those gaps. Because we're just missing that it's a continuous strip, which has got to be one of the longest continuous strips in the city. It just has breaks. That doesn't make it feel like you don't kind of just start at the end of Montgomery Road and kind of walk your way up just for a nice stroll, I guess, in the evening with it. So we just need to fill those gaps. That could make a huge difference.
Yeah, I'm just the one that comes to my head right now. Just the Hopkins Avenue, Lafayette, Montgomery intersection. that's just, it's one, if you're on that one side, you've got to cross like 5 streets to keep moving, and then it's not 5, I think it's 3, 2. But, and then 2, if just there's so many holes right there, especially like, what is it, Little Caesars, and there's a mobile shop there. So, yeah, like you said, I hope that we can find ways to encourage additional development there to bridge some of those gaps like that.
Mr. Orr, can you explain to me what you mean by an infill project?
So it means taking land that's either just a parking lot or underutilized, like maybe just as a house or potentially an auto lot that has more parking than is needed, and either tearing down the structure if it's not that old or was built during the auto age, and infilling it, as it were, with a building that fits the scale of. A good example that's happening, is the where the woodworking is.
Yes.
They're taking it down and making like the senior apartments. That's a perfect, that's an infill example that's right there. So, and where people are back and forth on what the building, and if they like the building or don't like the building, I think the scale of the building and the massing of the building will tie in down to University Station better. And you'll start to see that gaps, and I think hopefully we'll look back at that building as being sort of not a catalyst, but like a harbinger of other infill projects. We'll get another one maybe on the Hudson sort of side on the other side with it to dot those in. And then once you start to get the momentum going, other ones start to fill in, and all of a sudden you've got a street infrastructure that combines University Station with old structures that are about that same 2 to 3 story tall thing, and then you've got that vibrancy that really starts to create a catalyst towards the change that we're looking for on Montgomery Road. But I think development driven.
Yeah, you're right about momentum. As you can see it in communities around here where it's happening. It's like something just starts to catch a little bit of hold, and you can just feel it start to snowball. It's not necessarily a quick process. It's 5, 6, 7 years, but once it catches, man, you just start to notice on a regular basis that there's new things happening in these communities, and just, I know we all want that to happen here,
And we're hitting an economic boom time, and it's a cycle. The 90s was kind of that cycle that we hit it to, and we're hitting a cycle now. So you feel bad when you miss those opportunities, because then you have the downturn where nothing happens. So feels like you gotta jump on these chances, but it's hard to, like I said, with economic development, especially small business, it's just harder. There's no one solution to that.
So I have a couple of questions just to the committee and guests. I know that residents, whether it be through quality of life or just general discourse, have kind of said, wouldn't it be great to have X, Y, and Z? So Greg, when you talk about infill, I think we're all understanding we're repurposing a space, whether that's utilizing that same structure or putting in a new structure. But when we think about Tarek's point earlier in the entertainment districts, we want it to be stuff that we want to be able to attract the businesses that people will use. So I'm wondering what's, and from anybody's experience vantage point, what's our priority? Are we going to outline these are the types of services and businesses we want first? Or are we looking for a developer first and then sharing the ideas? I think I'm recalling too, there was a point on Norwood Strong, and maybe our friend Josh downloaded the list, but there were like 100 different options of like, what do you want to see built here? Like what kinds of businesses? I'm gonna ask and see. But I'm just thinking, I leave the city to get Thai and Greek. Like if we had some Thai or Greek in the city, like is that, I'm just curious, like I don't know how it got in the other places. Like, is it better to map out what you want, or do you go with the developer first and then say, this is what we'd like to see?
So I think it's twofold. For one, real quickly, the entertainment district, I think it's got to be careful on its messaging. It's not, when we've done, or I brought up an entertainment district in other communities, and people think it's just like a wild sort of free-for-all or whatever, and that's not the case with it. With the entertainment district is just allows you, like you said, the liquor license that allows a little bit more freedom on having more restaurants and businesses. It also allows a little bit more flexibility on outdoor seating, potentially. Currently in Ohio, obviously that's where you see all the fencing around outdoor seating if alcohol is served. And that, in some ways, that's a byproduct of those glory days where there was all the bars down there and you got guys everywhere, bumping into grandma and, they're whatever, walking down the street. So that was a response to that. I think now as a recognition that you don't need to corral folks as much when they're doing that, just because our people, the way we hang out is different. It's more of a family environment when you're kind of going out. So it allows more freedom to not have to have those fences everywhere. So that's another advantage of it. So, and then trying to figure out outdoor seating areas. And we did it in one community, and that in some places that meant taking out parking in some strategic areas in front of maybe old historic structures to make that business more viable. Like picture in front of Gordo's would be a good example. You know how it feels closed off from the road? It's a well-known place. People go there for lunch. If it had some type of outdoor seating in the front, so you create that energy as you're going, oh, people are out and doing things. So, but as for, I think you could start to create and say these are what we're open for, but at the end it seems like businesses are so diverse and people have so many different ideas, they're the ones who end up figuring out what they want. I think it's about making the space seem desirable and open and having enough space that people feel like they want to feel in a space that feels open and approachable. And then I think people will come with the ideas. But I think you do need those strategic, I don't want to say corporate, but just people who have done this before to do a couple of those infills, so then you can, that set the tone and the base, so then you can get more of the eclectic, sort of very small scale filling in the gaps.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's going to be hard for that small scale business to make it. There's not enough traffic. Like pedestrian traffic and stopping traffic, not the busy traffic.
On that point, I think there was 3, we're calling them bars, on this block right here across the street. There was 3 of them. This was years ago. So just, and that's the number all the way up Montgomery, all the way down Montgomery.
Yeah.
So my take on this is seeing this from a history point of view. I've been in Norwood I was born here, and I'm not going to tell you how old I was. I just told him. So I've seen the economic development go from we at one time we was booming here economically. We had Siemens, we had GM, we had, then those they started closing down. We still have Siemens, but so my take is we are sought after. Now it's up to us to figure out what we want, and we're doing zoning laws, and we're doing what's the other things that they're doing over the overlays, PUVs, what are they? So it's up to us how we go forward. But to me, I think we are sought after. Norwood is a sought after. So when someone's looking to start a business or the small business, this is the new gem we have right here. We're so close to the highway. So I think Norwood's sought after. It's up to us to structure when someone does come in and say, hey, I want to start this, building, I want to start a business here, and I have this plan, and they come to council. It's up to us to figure out exactly how we want to structure that. I think that's what Mr. Orrs is doing here. So to me, I don't think it's as much as us. Not that we don't go after the developers and things like that. I think Mr. Williams does that pretty well, but I think Norwood is sought after so much that businesses are coming to us because it's a great place. That's my take on that, just, what's worth. Thanks for listening.
I appreciate your historical perspective. That's good. Any other thoughts on small business development or development in general? I have a couple others. A while back, we talked about putting some resources on our website. We have a city website, and since we've last met as a committee, I've become more informed about how updates happen there. And a couple questions I wanted to pose to the committee have to do with just connecting two resources here. So Hamilton County calls out Norwood as a partnership. I think on their website, they're listed on our website. I'm not sure that there's a formal relationship there, but I'm just curious, do we feel like that is something to leverage through our committee? And as we think about development opportunities, I've reached out but not successful in having a tour and meet folks and really think through that on that end. So I thought, let me come back to the committee and see, do we have a point of view around that? I'm also aware there's a entrepreneurship center at Xavier, and have made the acquaintance of the director, but have not had a meeting there. And so I'm just trying to think about leveraging resources and whether places we might go to garner not just ideas, but partners to help think about what becomes in this next wave of development. So, any thoughts?
Did anyone see Mr. Williams' post yesterday? It was he. I think this touches on what you're saying here. He actually is reaching out to FC Cincinnati, and evidently there was putting some restrictions. I guess is it Oakley putting some restrictions, and there was some new restrictions came up, and he actually reached out, said, "Hey, come talk to us because we let our developers make those decisions or make those announcements." Anybody see that? Or am I the only one saw that?
I saw that.
I'm not familiar. You're talking about a post the mayor made?
The mayor made a post, reached out to FC Cincinnati, and I think that's where you was kind of going with this, partners and.
Well, I'm thinking resources to support development and specifically as it relates to small business or other development opportunities.
Okay.
I think what you're referencing is a development opportunity.
Okay.
That's maybe not a resource to folks directly who want to cultivate. I was not aware of
I
that,
thought
so
it
I'm
was
glad you shared that.
Yeah, and
That is interesting.
would be nice for economic development. So where would that be
Where would what be?
if they did decide that they wanted one here in Norwood? No?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure it would be like the Norwood Plaza if they were to build it here.
Yeah.
But even Oakley, that was considered to be too suburban for, I guess, Major League Soccer to put a stadium there. So the chances of Norwood, even at Norwood Plaza, which, there's definitely some buildings there that could be redeveloped into restaurants and stuff. If Oakley was considered to be too suburban, then I don't know how much of a chance that we would have at that. But I'm happy that the mayor is reaching out and talking, and I don't know how. I mean, I truly don't know how much residents would be excited about that once it actually arrives and we have 25,000 people trying to park in our neighborhoods, because it's already bad on Centos Center nights for many people at Williams and Mentor and Ivanhoe and Carter. Well, yeah, maybe not really Carter, but so, Centos Center has 10,000 people, and so we're going to take some of Centos Center's parking, and I guess I'll build some additional parking, and then push, double the amount, and then push them all out into the neighborhoods because I park about, 3/4 of a mile away when I go to FC Cincinnati games, and I park in a neighborhood near, I guess, Eden and University up in Uptown. And so, it's a great concept. Like, it sounds great because, talking to Xavier, they have no plans for that land except for parking. Like, that is their plan. And very soon, once the Family Dollar lease expires, they're going to demolish the rest of that Norwood Plaza and just add 100 or 150 more parking spaces. So parking is their vision right now for that land. So it would be great to have something that's not parking for sure. But I just don't know if FC Cincinnati is that key. As much as it would induce development on Montgomery Road, it would be a great catalyst for many other things. But and then one more thing on that, the city of Cincinnati is giving like $35 million in cash payments and payments like over a longer scale, plus property tax incentives. And so I don't, even though that it would probably be cheaper to build here than it would be maybe in the West End, because there's a lot of stuff that they're having to do in the West End. I just don't know that we would ever be able to compete with that. And we would never try, for one. I mean, they would have to, we just wouldn't. There's no money here in the city to do that. But I just don't know how we'd ever be able to compete on that. So I hear about FC Cincinnati all the time. I've been a season ticket holder since about a month or two after they announced it. I love FC Cincinnati, but and I love the mayor for going and at least asking the questions. I just don't know if Norwood is the right place for it. So.
Well, I would. My question would be: Is that the only place that we have room for it? And I'm intrigued by the idea.
Would you like to follow up? and let us know.
Well, I think it was just a, hey, look at Norwood. I don't think it's anything beyond that. So I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm sure if the mayor posted it on Facebook, the mayor probably loves talking about it. So you should definitely give him a call and engage him on that. I think he would enjoy that.
Well, any other thoughts?
I didn't mean to take the conversation elsewhere. So
That's fine.
I'm glad you shared that. That was news to me. I didn't see the post, so.
And
Glad to know.
I think the West End Stadium, so right now they're at the West End, and basically where Taft and other schools have their football stadium and the track, Stargell Stadium, I think it's called. So it looks like they're gonna go there. I mean, from everything that's I've been reading the paper about it, it's, they just got some T's to cross or I's to dot and a few other things to happen. So if MLS is coming to Cincinnati, I think it's gonna happen down in the West End. But, I think that the fact that the mayor's engaging, though, is good, and I hope that we can get him we can engage on many other things as well that need to happen. So
I wonder what our plans for U.S. playing cards is. So that would be my. That seems like a great area. I mean, I don't know. Is that a historic building? I think that's a historic building.
Yeah.
But is it too big for us to? What are we going to do with it? Yeah. So anyway, if FCC's listening,
invite them. Give them. Yeah.
I like.
Yeah, I think that in that site specifically, the playing card company site, I mean, it's literally right across the highway from the site that they were considering. In that MLS said,
exactly.
No way, Jose. So, but I will say though, when you talk about the playing card company building, it's a historic gem in my opinion, and
I agree.
I think Mayor said this on council floor before I was elected, so I'm pretty sure I can say it here. But the city before any of us you were on council at that point, but the city really went after Mercy Health when they were looking to build their new headquarters. They weren't necessarily always looking to build a new headquarters, they were just looking to move. And so the playing card company was, the mayor truly believes that that was the front runner and that it was going to happen, and that the Mercy Health organization, despite the fact they have no hospitals in the city of Cincinnati. I mean, they have, I guess, doctor's offices and stuff, but all their hospitals are, I'm almost certain, are now in suburban areas. They were pressured by the city of Cincinnati people to stay there and given a pretty sweetheart deal to build their new headquarters there with, right on the highway. But I think that there's still opportunity with playing card company. Another issue with that is that the person that bought it for too much, or he wants to sell it for too much, basically. There's some greed going on in that process, and the building's caught up in it. And so we as a committee need to look at, and maybe we'll add this to our next agenda, is what can we do with the quality end building. Playing card company is another one, but just buildings where we have developers that are holding them and seemingly we don't have a lot of progress. And so and I think playing card company is a perfect example of it. And there's got to be, I know we have vacant property ordinances out there. Are we using them? I don't really know. We need to find out about that. But we also need to see if there are other ordinances that we can pass or we can do that's going to positively incentivize, or maybe negatively incentivize, whatever, but incentivize the developer to act or sell the building or do something. Because I personally think that the city of Norwood's gotten strung along for far too long on both of these developments, Quality Inn and the playing card company, and that really it's time that we take some action. So I really appreciate Mr. Braden that you brought that up, because I've been meaning to say that, and so I'm happy we're able to talk about it. So maybe we can, I don't know if we're allowed to add goals, but I'd love to add a goal that we keep at least our eyes on those properties and try to get updates and try to move things. If there's any way to move things along, it would be fantastic.
I think the problem is, as a builder, when you look at a building like playing cards, and you're thinking, you're coming up with plans to, say, utilize that building, the renovation cost to something like that is outstanding. And it's, when you're looking at renovating an old structure versus building a new structure, it's night and day, and the cost involved in that is just so much that it scares people. I think that's a big problem we're going to have playing cards. Yeah. I love the building; it's a great historical building, but it's going to be an issue with the whole renovation and the cost of.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, this is I love if you don't, sorry about the conversation's deviate, but I love this conversation. And I think that we should potentially, invite, I think the mayor has a contact with the owner, the safety service director does, but I think we need to have the owner in here and invite them to come talk to us and like, hey, what's your plan? Like, let's talk about it. What can we do to help? Can we facilitate that? I mean, maybe before we get the bat out and say, do something now, we try to positively bring things in. So anyway, I apologize, Chairperson, and that this is deviated, but I think all of those are, I guess, important economic development topics there.
Yeah, I think it's pertinent, yeah.
Sorry.
I'm glad you had the discussion because I do agree they are important economic development discussions. I gleaned from conversations with the mayor and with our safety services director and with our building commissioner that economic development space you two are talking about is not really where this committee is welcome. I think there's been a clarifying of, sure, if you'd like to know what's going on with the developments, we're happy to hear questions and we'll share information. And so I'm happy to say, let's add this as a committee goal. If you want to follow up and make that invitation and they're able to come, I'm happy for us and the rest of the public to learn more about what are the development plans. I am mindful that we as a committee, as council members, are not often in those development conversations in terms of who's coming until the deal is done. And so I think it might be more beneficial for us to focus our time on being prepared to investigate once we know something has been committed to and has been made public. And I don't want to create the sensation that we're trying to undermine the processes that are in place. However, I do want to make sure we and the people who elected all of us understand what's going on and what the city is accountable for, what the city can do, and really what are the rights of the property owners as well. If there's something going on that we're just not privy to, I'd rather us pause and figure that out rather than interpret it and call it one thing if it's not. So I think the discussion is helpful. James, I don't think you were here the month that we actually set goals, so I'm glad you voiced that. And I think that's an appropriate goal to add. And I think what you were talking about is keeping an eye on the progress of development. Is that how you want to frame the goal, or is it something else?
I would say the progress and identifying and taking any actions that could speed things up, could move things along.
Can I weigh in on this? There's a line there between us as council and what we are legislated to do. And as far as Mr. Williams, I do know that there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes, and I think he gets that to where people think that it's underhanded, but I think a lot of that is done as far as development and as far as developers. There's a lot of that back and forth that happens before it is brought to us. And I think that was the whole point of this post, of when I just mentioned his post, that something, I don't know the details of what happened with FCC and the new announcement that they had some more demands for FCC that they brung out, and the city had came out with these demands. Well, in his posts, he was saying, look at Norwood, because we allow the developer to make the announcements. So if the developer has something nice and to bring out to the public, we allow them to. Basically, not that we let them do anything that's underhanded or something that, but the developers make that announcement and not the city makes that announcement. So I think a lot of that has to do with the developers and the administration making agreements, and that happens in in closed doors and things like that, and we're not always privy to that. So not that means that there's things that's happening that's backhanded or dirty. It's just that's the way things work, I think. So anyway, I'm went on too much. Sorry.
Do you have more closing comment for that?
It's fine. We're good.
Okay. So that was pretty robust. I captured a lot of that. It sounds like some actions, I don't know that anybody necessarily took ownership, but we want to find out more about entertainment districts. We want to find out more about how to attract infill developers. We want to find out more about the progress and action of property owners who are developing. we'll work on that language. Make sure I get it in here. And then we started talking about small business, just kind of, do we want to ratify a plan, a guide for how we do development here? I think Eric helped us understand it's great to have a plan and some thoughts, but if we can't attract anybody, what's the point of a plan? So let's make time to look at that again, and maybe in concert with some hows that we can look into. I will definitely take ownerships for some of these. I'll probably reach out to some of you committee members as well, maybe even to you, Greg, around some of the licensing, et cetera, just to make sure we're clear on what our opportunities are in terms of promoting development, and as well as just keeping track of what do we find interesting versus as a committee want to take action on. So,
And I think to circle back to your original question that you had there on a possible mechanism, I think we should reach out to existing economic development centers, whether it's Small Business Alliance, all these type of different things. But what I found as I've been trying to tackle this small business thing and looking at it as time goes on, there's a lot of people who do this already, and a lot of nonprofits that do it. I think it's just a matter that we need to reach out to them. We need to reach out to the incubator centers that are in Cincinnati, the one that's in Norwood, obviously too. So not recreate the wheel and figure out what their mechanisms are. Hamilton County as well. Let's potentially talk to the Port Authority. So just try to get these people and let them know what we're thinking, and let them know that the options are there along Montgomery Road and things like that. So.
Thank you. I will work with you to do that.
Yes, that would be good.
Okay. And I will work with Greg to identify those places, put some letters together, and we'll get that moving before our next meeting. So we have 2 more goals, and I really would like your feedback on. I'd like to start with the community engagement in Norwood. So part of the opportunity of chairing this committee was to think about what it would be called. And I wanted to move beyond buildings, because I have experienced a higher quality of life in communities where there is a high level of engagement, not just places to go and experience retail, food, entertainment, etc. And so when I think about community engagement in Norwood, one of the things that keeps popping up as I talk to residents, even as we experience our council meetings, is transparency about what's going on. A great example is development. There seems to be a lot of unknowns in our general discourse, whether that's in person or online. Changes in the city sometimes seem to be confusing to people, and just really like, what are we doing to affect change? And so, as I was anticipating this meeting, I reached out to our secretary to the clerk of council, Pam Hill, and I said, Pam, would you help us figure out where are Norwood residents going to get information? We've never, since maybe one meeting I've come to in this room has been packed. But residents typically don't come to this space to talk to us. That's neither here nor there, except I think for me to feel satisfactory about the work I do as a council member, I need to talk to people. And so I've noticed there's some momentum growing by being out in the community. And so it occurred to me, maybe the engagement residents want is really more online. Maybe it's another way. And so the list you have in front of you is a list of Facebook accounts by groups. And it's pretty sizable. There are, and you can pass this around to Angela. I've got a copy on my computer. There's 30 groups on that list? I'm pulling it up now. But there are people here in Norwood who are talking to each other and learning things about Norwood. And I don't think it's all connected by any stretch. I don't know that it's all intended for everyone in the city, but I do think it definitely poses an opportunity. And I'm going to use a very specific example because it's, in my mind, still unfinished business that we haven't coordinated fully yet. Eric, I think you've taken a few more steps on this, so if I'm misspeaking, let me know. You raised back in December, maybe you raised in January, because it happened, I think, in December. What's going to be our prevention strategy, our readiness approach next time there's displacement? I think you mentioned that in February, maybe January. And we realized, okay, as council, maybe that's not our work, but maybe we could help facilitate that, whether that's coordinating groups or coordinating residents who want to work together on that. And there have been some strides. When I think about the community we live in, the city we live in, and the communities that are here, the resident groups, I'm wondering, do we have an opportunity, maybe by leveraging these groups that do exist, to reach out and name, we'd like to hear from you. We'd like your help. We know you're talking to people who live here. What could that mean? I don't know that as a city we're in a place where we want to have a city social media presence. I think we're doing great just to get some updates to the website and begin to welcome people. So I really wanted to have a discussion, not so much about the content on any of these groups or pages, but really noticing if this is reflective of Norwood residents. There's a number of them, thousands of them, who are online. And how might we engage them so that we as a committee, we as a council have a better understanding of needs and wants as it relates to being engaged here?
I think you're fine with most Facebook things. If you want to engage with people, you just make a post and you'll get all the engagement you can handle. So
I would say you get all the responses. And that's really where I was hopeful to have a discussion. I'd love to hear more if there's more to that thought.
well, I mean, having this list, like, I know that most of us on council are fairly quiet in reaching out and engaging online, and a lot of the reason that happens is because it just turns into a mess whenever you do. I think James does more than pretty much anybody, so he could talk about the ups and downs of that, as it were. But I think things we could do is all of these things have administrators, people who run them, so it might be worth developing relationships with the people who are actually behind these groups, and just as a way to, like Mike Kiefer on Norwood political discussions. I mean, you can field stuff to Mike and he'll throw it out on the page, and he'll get a discussion going if you need discussion, or he'll ask a question if you need it. I know James and Adrian with Norwood Strong can do the same kind of thing. So, I think a good first step, at least with the Facebook stuff, is getting a rapport with the people who are running the sites. It doesn't have to be all of them. I mean, there's a whole lot of, you pick your top 5 sites and just get going. And then it's things as simple as every meeting the city has about anything, we make sure it gets posted. Not just council, not just what's on the sunshine list and gets come through, but every zoning meeting, every council meeting, every committee meeting, every board of whatever meetings that we have, they all get posted. And I'm not even saying the city does a good job of doing what it's legally required to post. We take out the ads in the paper that we're supposed to take out, and we put the flyers on the boards that we're supposed to put, and we email the people that we're supposed to email. But there's no reason we shouldn't just post every meeting in as many places as we possibly can. And I think these folks who run these pages would be happy to help with that.
Thank you. Those are great suggestions to talking about building relationships with administrators or moderators of pages, and then making sure any publicly noticed meeting actually gets a post on Facebook as well. Any other thoughts? And if you don't, that's fine too. I'm just really aware there are a lot of people that aren't here right now, yet they are looking for information about Norwood. And I just think there's an opportunity to think about that. And I don't know that it's, I love what you're saying, Eric. I do think it's appropriate to redirect people to what we're doing as a city. And I also think, because and I'm not even sure if I can come up with an example from other cities. I don't know that it would necessarily be a city or a council function, but the lack of coordination that has come up in our conversations. I know it's come up in quality of life. It's like we got 15 people who want to do the same project and they don't know each other but all live on the same street. Like that kind of lack of coordination, I think, is one of our greatest opportunities. I think that could even surface some of the insights we're asking for right now. You know, like who knows, and how do we build that relationship, or how do we use these mechanisms to surface that information? So I don't think this is the last time to really talk about engagement, and I really want to keep coming back to it. I'm very mindful. When I ran for this seat, there are a lot of people who actually don't know me, but I represent them, and I don't think that's necessarily fair. I mean, I'm not hiding from people, but I am cognizant of the fact that there are people who probably don't feel comfortable talking to me for whatever reasons. And I want to start seeing some of those barriers removed, because I am wholeheartedly committed to the idea that if you're a resident of Norwood and you're 18, you could be sitting in this seat too. So it'd be nice to have some rapport with each other and really understand, what does it mean to sit here in these seats? And how do all of us help those who are in these seats do this work really well? It's real easy to think about what you think it should be. And I'm committed to the reality. I need residents, whether it's a quality of life interview or having lunch, although I know where you live, really saying, like, this is what I want. This is what I'd like represented. And I think that's a huge opportunity I don't want to walk past in our time on council. So if anyone else has thoughts, I'm going to reach out, Eric, on yours, to act on your reaching out. I mean, obviously we can all broker relationships. We have that list. But in terms of the posting, to see if even Pam could help with that. I know by law we're not required to post on social media, but maybe that's something we think about putting into practice. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, and you mentioned the website, and I did talk to T.A. Brown. We've had quite a few discussions about our city website, about SH Consulting, who manages it. Mm-hmm. And T.A. is, well, in their discussions, I mean, he feels like SH Consulting is willing to do, or SNH is willing to do even some pretty serious changes to our website, just in some of our existing contracts that we already have with them. And so, you know, I've kind of just been playing around and looking at other cities' websites, like the City of Blue Ash and City of Mason, and you know, I think if there are ideas or examples that we want to emulate, you know, I think we might want to get, like, you know, one or two of us together and maybe potentially start working with TA on that. And we can't have three because of, you know, Open Meetings Act, but I think we can start working with TA to try to see where can we take the website, what can we start doing, because I think that there's opportunity. Like, let's just say, like, a feature to submit a pothole, so you can submit, like, a, you know, there's a big pothole somewhere and you want to see it filled. I mean, things like that, so you don't have to feel like you always have to call Public Works. And we talk about engagement too, so I know that this is kind of reverse engagement. This is get hearing from citizens, but I've been using the Fix It Cincy app that the city of Cincinnati has, just because I own an apartment building in Cincinnati. And so I just submitted some graffiti yesterday on a stop sign right near my apartment building. And so I got a notification 2 days later that, you know, they tried to remove the graffiti. It wasn't going to be removed, so now they have a work order in to change the stop sign out. So, you know, and it was cool. So they communicated with me, told me, and then I got a survey about 6 hours later saying, how did you like your experience? And so, you know, whether it be, and actually I'm curious if we could even, you know, pay the city of Cincinnati to open up the lines of Norwood, if you will, so that we can have some shared governance kind of things and use their app. Just we get the emails or we get the notifications for it. So
that's a great app. I was really, really sad to notice, yep, there's a hard line.
Yes. Oh, yes. And if you try clicking in there, I mean, it like locks the app up and says, like, this is not in the city of Cincinnati. So.
Which is good. Would you be willing to check with them about what would they charge us if they added that?
Yeah, I'll ask.
Because I think residents would find that very valuable.
Yeah, and I think there's at least, I don't know if any of you all ever filled out the Inquirer they had inquired like a political questions that they would post if you would fill them out for political candidates, and like the one they always ask is like, it's all about shared services. And so, you know, if we have any other ideas too, like I'll reach out about that, but I'm happy to reach out about anything else if anybody sees something that Cincinnati is doing that's really nice and we want to potentially use it too, you know, for a fee or whatever. Because interestingly, well, I won't go in, I have another side I can go into about that, but there's lots of opportunities there, so I will ask about that.
For a second, with the website too, I'd be happy to talk with TA, and I don't, with your design sort of background, and James, your interests in your Facebook and outreach, I mean, maybe we could come sit down with them and see what works within our existing contract and what we could do, because it needs a pretty significant upgrade with it. And I've been doing the same thing, looking at other sites and how they look, and with the cover page and just usability and all of that. And so I have some ideas too.
Great. Yeah, so if that's okay, the three of us then can...
Yeah.
I would love it.
Yeah, great.
Make it beautiful.
It needs it.
It needs it a lot. I do think it would also be helpful for you all as you're working, just to let other members of council know how do you want information, who to send it to, as ideas come up. That way there's a little bit of a process of who needs the content type deal.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That I think will be a huge bonus. Any other thoughts around engagement before we shift to our last topic? Okay, thank you all so much for your feedback thus far. I've got a lot of notes, which I'm committed to putting on just one page this time, and preparing our report. I am aware that the model of neighborhood associations and community councils has been really dynamic for me, and just my formation around what civic engagement looks like at a municipal level. And I wanted to keep moving forward with the discussion around neighborhood associations, but really with a lot of caution. And the reason I say caution is because I would love to see, come June 23rd, a body of residents be like, we got this. This is really how we're going to talk to each other about these priorities we just identified. I don't think we need a structure for the sake of structure, but again, when I think about, I'm going to call them responses, Eric, not engagement. The type of responses that sometimes are made available to the public, and the benefit or lack thereof as it relates to bringing neighbors together. I think we need another structure, not just an online platform and not just a public meeting. For me, that's an association or a community council. That's where I personally have had that experience. So I want to be cautious not to be prescriptive, because I know that the work that's happening with the quality of life plan is going to generate action from people who say, yep, I want to make my voice heard, lift up this priority, carry it through. So I want to name that. I think we need to keep discussing this, because as the process moves forward, I think there will be opportunities where, for instance, there is a resident group that has focused on economic development and was really wanting to move things forward in terms of, we want to make a map and do some streetscapes and talk to developers. And then they thought, well, maybe we should wait on the plan first to find out what the rest of the city's interested in. And maybe we should think about, does that fall within the threshold of us? Like, is it all legal according to existing ordinances? So I just want to name that. I think there's a need to gain input from residents that might surface through this reporting, visioning process, and would like to keep an eye out for that. So maybe come later part of summer, we can revisit this. I'm open to any comments or feedback based on the questions I put in here. Like, do we actually need to address the fact that people don't come to public meetings? Is that really an issue we want to pay attention to? And I call it an issue because if you're 18 and live in this city, this could be you. And I sometimes get a little concerned. If I don't decide to do this again, who's going to sit here? And that's not about like the quality of the person, but it's just really about, do we have a body in the 20,000 people who live here who actually are interested in serving our city this way? And if there's some type of barrier that keeps people from even just sitting in the room with us, how do we begin to knock that down so that we can all, as a city, feel real good about a vibrant group of people interested in our governance? So that's what I have about that today. Is it something we want to address? And then maybe just holding off until the report out happens to think more constructively about, if we think yes, how?
Yeah, I mean, I've got some different ideas in my head that I think that this could look, and I know some people, I think we all know people that are wanting to do, like, to enact positive change, but they do not want to be involved in the mudslinging or the political stuff, or they don't want to run for necessarily office, but they want to be, you know, engaged and active and want to work to make things better. And many of them are already doing that. And so I can definitely see, yeah, I mean, we all can have people, but I can definitely see certain people that would be super excited about a community council type of setting where they can work to, you know, work to do some of the things that the Cincinnati community councils do, but not have to deal with some of the political things on the other side. So I personally would like to, I mean, I think it might be prudent to wait until the quality of life plan comes out, or at least until the visioning, the report back happens, to learn more, but I'm open to exploring options either way. And I know that you asked in the email you sent us, shall we ask for a presentation at council too, for a report back, and I personally,
Thank you.
I think that would be great, like have a committee of the whole meeting to do that, so.
Yeah, thank you. So I said earlier, I had emailed the agenda out to the committee members, and one of the questions I had posed to the committee was, should we ask the Quality of Life Steering Planning Committee, I think that's your name, I might have botched it, to come to council and actually share with us the report out. I know not all of us will be there, and so yes, I will make that known to the President of Council. We're interested in a committee of the whole and having that presentation as well. Yeah. If there are no other thoughts on engagement, or kind of pausing on developing or defining a structure around engagement, be happy to go get ice cream.
I think adjourning would be a great thing.
All right, thank you all very much for your time. I'll follow up with some action steps.